afternoon. I'm Frank Barnes. I'm the emergency manager for the City of Oklahoma City. As the emergency manager, I'm responsible for the city's comprehensive emergency management program, which includes mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. And today I'm going to talk to you about disaster preparedness. When we talk about disaster preparedness, one of the key components is individual responsibility. Being able to take care of you and your family for at least 3 days. And as part of that individual responsibility, you need to be informed, you need to make a plan, you need to build a kit, and you need to stay informed. When we talk about being informed, one of the first things you should do is know what to do before, during, and after an emergency. And there's more information about what to do before, during, and after an emergency at the FEMA website, www.ready.gov. But you should also know about what natural hazards may impact you and your family. For example, do you live in a floodplain or near a floodplain where your home could be flooded? Are you in an area that has severe weather and is prone to having tornadoes? Do you live on the coastline where you could be impacted by hurricanes? Do you live in an area that has earthquakes? Do you live on the coastline in an area that has earthquakes where you might be impacted by a tsunami? Know what natural hazards you have and then plan for those hazards. You should also learn about the technological and accidental hazards, sometimes referred to as man-made hazards. These are things like hazardous material sites. Do you live near a refinery? Do you live near a plant or company that stores or manufactures or uses large quantities of hazardous material? Are you near a railroad where a train may derail and that train may be carrying hazardous material? Do you live near an interstate and on the interstate, are they transporting hazardous materials? Be aware of these kinds of hazards that may be in and around your home. You need to be aware of terrorist hazards. Are you in a community that may be a potential terrorist target? Another thing you should be aware of is your options for protection. Many people instinctively think that when something bad happens, they're supposed to immediately evacuate, and that's not necessarily true. Many times you can shelter in place. In fact, after many emergencies and disasters, if your home has not been damaged and it's still habitable, then you should shelter in place and stay in your home. Only evacuate when necessary in order to save your life or when ordered to do so by authorities. Another part of being prepared is making a plan. Prepare, plan, and stay informed for emergencies. You have to plan for your risks. In the last slide, we talked about knowing what hazards you may face, and you need to plan for those hazards. If you know that you live in an area where there's a wildland fire urban interface, where your home may be affected by a wildland fire, then you want to plan for how you're going to deal with that. How are you going to evacuate in the event of an advancing wildfire? If you live in a floodplain or near a floodplain where there's a potential of being flooded, okay, how are you going to evacuate if your home is flooded? What are you going to do to recover after your home is flooded? So you need to plan for those risks that will impact you and your family. Plan to protect yourself and your family. And there's a good resource at the www.ready.gov website. It's called the Family Emergency Plan. And you can download this document, and it walks you through steps, and you fill in information so that you can build your own plan that's specific for your family and your situation. You also need to think about the care for your pets. You're probably going to want to evacuate with your pets, and you're going to need to care for those pets. You're going to have to be able to provide them with food and water and the medicine that they may require. And you may also have to take care of family members who have access or functional needs. They may have a mobility disability and may need assistance getting around or evacuating. Family communications. How will you contact one another in the case of an emergency? You know, right now, everyone's instinct is to pick up their cell phone and call their other family member. But as we have found during major emergencies and disasters, cell phone circuits become overloaded, and you're not able to get through. So you have to think about, how will I communicate in different situations? You know, one example is, okay, the cell phones don't work, or the cell phone system's overloaded. How do I communicate to my family members? How do I get a message to them that I'm okay, or where to meet, so that we can come together as a family? So that brings us to get tech ready. You know, one example that's provided at the website is learn how to send updates via text. Even though your cell phone may not work, we have found during major emergencies and disasters that text messaging does work. And a lot of messages can be sent from one cell phone to another using text messages. So learn how to do that. Find out if your phones have that capability, and use that as one of your options when you can't talk to someone using the telephone. Also think about having extra batteries for your cell phone, because if there's no electricity and you can't charge it, you're going to need to be able to charge that cell phone, or have a solar-powered or hand-cranked charger so you can recharge the batteries to your cell phone. As part of your plan, think about your escape routes. You know, certainly you want to think about how you evacuate your home. If your home were to catch fire, how are you going to evacuate your home? Where will the family meet up after they evacuate the home so that you can count heads and make sure that everyone got out of the home safely? But also think about if you have to evacuate your neighborhood. If you're in a neighborhood that may be prone to flooding, or may have a wildland urban interface, then think about how you're going to evacuate. What routes would you take? And you have to keep in mind that hazards can come from different directions, so you can't always rely on that one evacuation route. You may have to think of alternative routes. As part of your plan, make sure that you know how to turn off your utilities, how to turn off your natural gas, how to turn off your water, how to turn off your electricity. Many times after an earthquake, gas lines rupture, and homes that were not destroyed in the earthquake or did not suffer major damage catch fire because of leaking gas lines. Also, ruptured water lines, for example, after an ice storm or prolonged period of cold weather, can flood your home and do damage. Know how to shut them off so that you can minimize the damage to your home. Insurance and vital records. We encourage everyone to obtain homeowners and or renters insurance.